The automatic glass doors slid open with a soft hiss as Zayden Carter stepped into the marble-floored lobby of the Sapphire Palms Hotel in Miami. He was 12, neatly dressed in a navy polo and khakis, his sneakers clean, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He walked with quiet confidence, the kind that came from someone raised to know his worth. The lobby buzzed with luxury. Guests lounged on leather sofas under crystal chandeliers. A pianist played something soft in the corner, but all of it faded the moment Zayden reached the front desk. The hotel manager, a tall white man with slicked-back hair and a nameplate that read G. Tanners, glanced up from his screen. His eyes narrowed the moment they landed on the boy. "Can I help you, kid?" he said, already annoyed. Zayden nodded politely. "Yes, sir. I'm here to check in. My mom made the reservation." Tanners blinked. "You're checking in?" "Yes, sir. The reservation's under Carter. She said everything was prepaid." The manager's jaw tightened. He looked around, then leaned slightly over the counter. "Listen, son, this isn't the kind of place you wander into. Guests here, well, they usually don't show up alone." Zayden kept his voice calm. "She said I'd be arriving before her." Tanner scoffed. "Of course she did. And let me guess, you'll need a suite key, maybe a bellhop?" Zayden stood a little straighter. "Yes, sir." The manager's voice turned cold, loud enough for others to hear. "We've had enough of this kind of nonsense. Kids walking in off the street pretending they have rooms here. You people always try this trick." Conversations around the lobby went quiet. A couple near the elevator turned to look. A concierge behind the counter froze mid-keystroke. Zayden didn't move. He just looked up at the man, unsure of what he'd done wrong. "Where's your parent?" the manager snapped. "Security's going to have to handle this. We don't do walk-ins from guests like you." Then, without warning, he stepped around the counter and grabbed Zayden gently by the arm. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." But before the boy could speak, the elevator at the far end of the lobby chimed. Everyone looked. The doors opened. A woman stepped out, dressed in a charcoal gray suit, heels sharp against the polished floor, a leather portfolio in one hand. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. The moment she saw Zayden's arm in the manager's grip, her eyes locked on the man. Tanners, sensing the sudden hush, looked toward her. He froze. The woman didn't say a word. She just stared at him. Not a flinch, not a blink. The silence grew louder than the piano. Guests sat motionless. The manager let go of Zayden's arm, slowly, like he'd touched fire. And still, the woman said nothing. But her eyes? They said everything. The next morning, sunlight poured through the blinds of a quiet townhouse in downtown Chicago. Zayden Carter sat at the edge of his bed, lacing his sneakers with the same care he gave to everything else. His uniform was neatly pressed, his backpack already packed from the night before. Downstairs, the phone buzzed once, then again. He picked it up. A text from his mother, as usual. "Have a great day, Z. Call me if anything feels off. Always. I love you." Zayden smiled softly, then slipped the phone in his pocket. At Wellington Academy, things always looked polished on the surface. Trimmed hedges, luxury SUVs dropping off students, staff greeting with clipped smiles. But beneath the clean perfection was something colder. Zayden felt it every morning when he walked through the gate. No one said anything cruel to his face, but the silence always said enough. Inside the literature classroom, he took his seat in the front row. Always early, always ready, The teacher walked in, cheerful. "Okay, class, who can tell me what the mockingbird symbolizes in To Kill a Mockingbird?" The room went quiet. Zayden raised his hand. The teacher smiled, relieved. "Go ahead, Zayden," he answered calmly. "It represents innocence. How harming someone harmless, like Tom Robinson, is like killing a mockingbird, because they only bring beauty or truth into the world." The teacher nodded, clearly impressed, but behind him a voice cut through the room like a knife. "Wow, I didn't know janitors got to answer literature questions now." Snickering followed. Camilla Hastings, blonde ponytail, Gucci sneakers. Her father owned 2 buildings on campus. Her voice was sharp and sweet, like a glass of lemonade that had gone bad. Zayden didn't turn, didn't react. He simply lowered his hand and opened his notebook. Camilla wasn't done. "Don't get too comfortable, Carter. Not every room's made for everyone." Her friends laughed, but the teacher said nothing. She never did. Not when Camilla made jokes about lunch card balances or asked Zayden if he took the train from the wrong part of town. Zayden had learned long ago. Anger made them feel like they won. So he stayed quiet. That wasn't weakness. That was survival. During lunch, he sat under the oak tree by himself, eating quietly while others filled the picnic tables. A few boys walked past and dropped their soda cans on the ground in front of him. He picked them up, tossed them in the bin, and didn't say a word. Later that evening, he joined his online chess class. He listened to a guest mentor from a law firm in D.C. explain the value of calm pressure. How some people win not by fighting, but by never flinching. Zayden listened carefully. After class, he video called his mom. She answered from an airport lounge. "Tough day?" she asked, reading his face like a book. He shrugged. "Same as always." "You held your ground?" "I didn't give them anything to laugh about." She smiled. "That's my boy. Your moment's coming." He didn't ask what she meant, but something in her voice told him. This time, she had a plan. When the call ended, Zayden lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling. He wasn't angry, just patient. Because in his world, silence wasn't weakness. It was a waiting game. And when the moment came, they wouldn't see it coming. The Sapphire Palms Resort sparkled under the Florida sun, its white columns and palm-shaded drive designed to impress. Black-tinted SUVs lined the circular entrance. Doormen in white gloves greeted every guest like royalty. And right there, stepping out of a rideshare with his backpack slung over one shoulder, Zayden Carter walked toward the glass doors. He had the reservation number memorized. He adjusted the strap on his shoulder, took a breath, and entered. The moment he stepped onto the marble floor, a wave of cold air hit his face. Chandeliers hung above. A string quartet played softly in the far lounge. Wealth echoed in every detail. He made his way to the front desk. "Good afternoon," he said politely, standing on tiptoes to reach the counter. "Reservation under Carter. My mom booked it for the weekend. I'm checking in early." She said she added a note. The front desk clerk, a young woman named Paige, smiled politely. "One moment, sir." She began typing. Then he heard it. Heavy footsteps. From the corner of his eye, Zayden saw a man in a gray blazer approach. Tall, mid-50s, hair combed back, a gold nameplate pinned to his chest. Bradley Harlow, hotel manager. Harlow glanced at the boy, then at the clerk. "What's going on here?" he asked, voice low but sharp. "He's checking in," Paige said, not looking up. Harlow's eyes narrowed. "Alone?" Zayden turned. "Yes, sir. My mom made the reservation. She's arriving in a few hours. Everything's confirmed." Harlow folded his arms. "This hotel isn't a playground. You don't just walk in and claim a suite." Zayden's face didn't change. "The Carter Suite. My mom said it would be ready." "The Carter Suite," Harlow repeated, almost laughing. "You're kidding." The air changed. A family in line behind Zayden leaned in slightly. Harlow stepped closer. "Where exactly did your mother get the money for a Carter Suite?" Zayden's fingers tightened on his backpack strap. "She told me to come straight here. Early check-in was approved." Harlow gave a smug smile. "Sure. And I suppose your dad owns the building too?" "No, sir." "Right. Because that would be too much fiction for one day." Zayden remained still. The clerk looked uncomfortable. She glanced down again and whispered, "Manager, there is a Carter Suite reservation." Harlow ignored her. "You kids think this is funny? What is this, a TikTok prank? Who sent you in here?" "It's not a prank," Zayden said calmly. "You have ID?" Harlow snapped. Zayden reached into his backpack and pulled out a laminated student card with his photo, name, and birth date. Harlow barely looked at it. "This doesn't prove anything." "It proves my name," Zayden said quietly. Guests nearby had begun watching. Whispers spread. A couple paused near the elevators. Harlow's voice grew louder. "I've dealt with this before. You people walking in like you belong, trying to play the system." Zayden blinked. There it was. Those two words. "You people." The clerk froze. One guest pulled out their phone. "I'm calling security," Harlow said. "You're not checking in. This is private property, and you're not on any list that matters." Zayden tried once more. "Sir, please." But Harlow reached out and grabbed him firmly by the elbow. "Out! Now!" Zayden's mouth opened slightly. His breath caught. The moment stung, but he didn't speak. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. Because in that second, everything his mother had ever taught him echoed louder than the marble floor. And then, ding. The elevator at the end of the lobby opened. The doors slid apart, and Maya Carter stepped out. The sound of her heels striking polished stone turned every head in the room. She wore a muted blue suit. No jewelry. No purse. Just a black leather folder under her arm and a calm expression that did not match the storm in her eyes. Harlow didn't see her right away. He was too busy holding on to Zayden's arm. But the clerk did. So did the guests. And then Harlow noticed the silence. The way people suddenly stood straighter. He turned and froze. Maya Carter's voice didn't rise. She didn't need to scream. All she said, quiet, clear, and loaded with fire, was, "Take your hand off my son." And the lobby fell still. The manager's hand dropped instantly from Zayden's arm. Maya Carter's heels clicked steadily as she crossed the lobby. Her eyes never left Harlow. Not once. She stopped just inches away. Calm. Controlled. But her presence burned hotter than any shout. Zayden didn't say a word. He just took one step back, behind her. Bradley Harlow opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "Is there a problem with my son's reservation?" Maya asked, voice smooth as steel. The front desk clerk, Paige, swallowed hard. "No, ma'am. I was in the middle of processing it when—" Harlow cut in, trying to recover. "There was confusion. He didn't, he wasn't, he came in alone and— You grabbed him, Maya said, sharp but quiet, in front of a lobby full of guests. The silence returned. A child with a suitcase paused mid-step. A couple near the fountain froze, pretending not to stare. Maya slowly reached into her folder. Out came a smooth black leather badge case. She flipped it open with one practiced motion. The gold seal caught the lobby lights. Maya Carter, CEO, Carter Legacy Hotels. This property is under my ownership group. Harlow's face turned sheet white. Behind the counter, Paige gasped. Guests began whispering. One woman reached for her phone. The man beside her already had his camera on. Maya stepped closer. My son arrived exactly as instructed. Early check-in. Priority suite. Everything arranged in advance. Yet you— She nodded once toward her son. Chose to make him feel like a criminal. Ma'am, I didn't know who he was, Harlow stammered. I thought maybe he just looked like— Say it, Maya said. Harlow blinked. Say what you were going to say. He looked down. You saw a black child alone, and you assumed he didn't belong. No, I thought— You didn't think. You judged. The elevator behind them dinged again, but no one moved. Maya turned her attention to Paige. Her tone softened just slightly. Is the Carter suite reserved under my name? Yes, ma'am. It's here, Paige replied quickly. Executive level. Early check-in. Note says, Zayden Carter arriving solo. Treat with full VIP courtesy. Maya gave a single nod. And was any part of that confusing to you? No, ma'am. Did he do anything at all, to justify being grabbed or threatened with removal? No, ma'am. He was polite, calm. He gave his name clearly. Maya turned back to Harlow. The manager looked like he wanted to melt into the marble. You've worked in hospitality how long, Mr. Harlow? He mumbled, 22 years. And in that time, how many children have you escorted out by the arm for simply checking in? He said nothing. Would you have done that if he were blonde? Still nothing. Would you have done that if he wore loafers instead of sneakers? A long pause. Then Maya said, louder this time, for the guests, for the staff, for the cameras she knew were rolling. This man physically touched my son, denied him access, humiliated him, in a property he is legally authorized to enter, all because his skin didn't match your idea of what wealth looks like. A murmur swept through the room. Zayden still hadn't said a word. He didn't need to. He was watching the moment unfold the way he always had. Quiet, steady, unshaken. Harlow began to sweat. I didn't mean— You meant everything you did, Maya said, firm. And now, you'll face what comes next. Two men in black suits stepped out from a side hallway. Security. Maya nodded toward them. This man is to be relieved of his duties immediately. Escort him to his office. Retrieve his personal belongings. He is no longer welcome on Carter Legacy property. One of the security officers stepped forward. Yes, ma'am. Harlow took a small step back. Wait, hold on. I made a mistake. You made a decision, Maya corrected him. And it wasn't just about a child in a hotel. It was about every guest who's ever walked in here wondering if they'd be treated differently because of who they are. Please, don't do this, he whispered. I'm not doing anything, she said. You already did. Harlow looked around for help, but no one moved. No one spoke. Even the front desk clerk, Paige, just looked away. Maya extended her hand toward Zayden. He stepped forward. She didn't say anything to him. She just rested her hand on his shoulder. And they walked past Harlow like he wasn't even there. Toward the elevator. Toward the Carter suite. And behind them, security took the manager by the arm. This time, someone else was being escorted out. The glass doors shut behind them with a soft hiss as Maya and Zayden rode the elevator in silence. Neither said a word. The elevator music played gently, a piano version of something classical. But Zayden wasn't listening. He stared straight ahead, trying to process everything that had just happened. His mother looked calm, but her jaw was tight. When they reached the top floor, the doors opened to a private hallway, lined with fresh orchids and soft carpet. Their suite door was already open. A tall black woman in a staff blazer stepped aside. "Welcome, Ms. Carter. Everything is prepared." Maya nodded once. "Thank you, June." The woman smiled at Zayden. "We've been waiting for you, young man." He blinked. It was the first kind smile he'd seen all day. Inside the suite, floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the ocean. A welcome fruit tray sat untouched. The lights had been dimmed, the AC set just right. But Zayden didn't go straight to the view. He dropped his bag on the couch and turned to his mother. "You didn't tell me you own this place." "I didn't think I had to," she replied softly. "I wanted to see how they'd treat you without knowing." Zayden sat down, quiet. Maya walked to the table, pulled out her phone, and tapped a few names. Within minutes, corporate emails began firing off. Subject: urgent. Incident at Sapphire Palms, Miami. Within 2 hours, Maya had spoken with the regional director, the HR lead, and the company's diversity officer. Footage was pulled. Staff statements were collected. Multiple front desk employees admitted they'd seen Harlow behave this way before, with other guests who didn't look like they belonged. But no one ever said anything. No one wanted trouble. Until now. By evening, the story had already begun to leak. A lobby guest had uploaded a 36-second video clip to TikTok. Harlow grabbing Zayden. Maya stepping off the elevator. The moment she said, "Take your hand off my son." The clip hit 400,000 views in under 4 hours. Maya didn't respond to media calls. She didn't need to. The truth was loud enough now. At the front desk, Paige sat quietly in the break room, holding a printout of Maya's thank you message. It read, "Thank you for staying professional. You're the kind of staff this company needs more of." Later that night, 2 assistant managers were pulled into an emergency meeting. One admitted Harlow had received at least 3 past complaints for his aggressive assumptions. All had been quietly filed away. That changed now. The next morning, Maya ordered a full review of hiring, training, and incident reporting procedures. She didn't do it for headlines. She did it because she meant what she said. This wasn't just about her son. It was about every person who ever stood at that counter and felt less than human. At the same time, across the city, Bradley Harlow sat in a corner booth at a seafood restaurant, scrolling through the news on his phone. CEO shuts down racist incident at her own hotel. Carter Hotels fires manager after incident with black child guest. He turned off the screen and lowered his head. His inbox had over 60 missed calls and 20 unread emails. None were offering support. The severance package he was promised? Revoked. He tried calling someone he used to supervise. No answer. He tried logging into the hotel portal. Denied. One by one, his access vanished. Back at the resort, things felt different. The energy had shifted. Guests still walked the marble halls, still sipped cocktails under cabanas. But now, staff moved with more awareness. No more quiet judgment behind polished counters. No more looking the other way. In the employee training room, a new presentation was loaded onto the screen. Bias isn't always loud, but it's always seen. Zayden watched quietly from the balcony of their suite as hotel staff escorted a new guest up the walkway. This time, a young black couple with 2 toddlers. He noticed something. The bellhop smiled. The front desk staff actually opened the door before they reached it. It was a small thing, but it felt big. That evening, Maya sat beside her son, answering one final email before she shut her laptop. Zayden looked at her. "You changed everything in one day," he said. She shook her head. "Number, you did." He didn't respond, but the look in his eyes said more than words. 2 days later, the story was everywhere. Black boy kicked out of hotel, then his mother turns out to be CEO. Carter Hotels issues public statement after racial incident at Miami resort. Manager fired after grabbing VIP child guest. Twitter reacts. News outlets picked it up. Morning shows debated it. Hashtags trended. Respect black children. This is America. Carter, CEO. But while the world talked, Bradley Harlow hid. He had deactivated his Facebook, locked his LinkedIn, changed his phone number. But it didn't stop the calls. An old coworker messaged him, "I warned you years ago. Now, look." His daughter, a senior at a private school, was pulled aside by the administration. "Until the press dies down, it might be best if you stayed home." Her school email access was cut off that same afternoon. The family's condo association sent a formal notice. Several neighbors had voiced concerns about community image. Discreet language, clear message. Bradley had worked 22 years in luxury hotels. Now no one would return his calls. Meanwhile, Maya didn't appear on any talk shows. She didn't post a single photo or make a single public comment. She stayed quiet. And still, the silence thundered louder than a headline. Back at school, Zayden walked the same halls he always had. But everything felt different. The students who used to smirk now stared from a distance, unsure, curious. One boy from his math class stopped him by the lockers. "My dad showed me that video. He said you didn't even flinch. That was badass." Zayden didn't respond. He just nodded. Not to be cold, but because victory didn't need applause. Camilla Hastings hadn't been in school for a week. Rumor was her family lost 2 big contracts after her father's name got dragged through the news. Her mom had canceled the country club membership. And while no one said it directly, everyone knew. The girl who used to mock Zayden now had nothing to say. Maya received a formal invitation to speak at a global hospitality conference. She declined. Instead, she issued a company-wide memo. "Let this serve as a permanent reminder. Racism doesn't hide in policy. It hides in tone, in assumption, in who you think deserves respect. At Carter Hotels, that ends now." In Miami, staff began speaking more freely. Stories surfaced. Guests of color recalled being watched too closely, ignored at the valet, spoken to differently. Now, those voices weren't dismissed. They were documented, reviewed, corrected. Paige, the front desk clerk, was promoted to Assistant Guest Relations Director. She redesigned the onboarding program. We don't assume who someone is based on how they enter. We let their name speak first. Back in their suite on the final day, Zayden stood near the door, suitcase packed, room spotless. Maya looked at him. Ready? He nodded. But before he walked out, he turned back once and looked around. Not at the view. Not at the fancy chairs. Just at the front desk. The new clerk smiled at him and said, "Safe travels, Mr. Carter." And this time, no one looked twice. The town car pulled away from the Sapphire Palms entrance, the sun casting soft shadows across the palm-lined drive. Zayden leaned his head against the window, watching the resort shrink in the rearview mirror. No one waved. No one needed to. He hadn't come to be seen. But now, he wouldn't be forgotten. Beside him, Maya sat silently, a tablet in her lap. Notifications buzzed, emails, interview requests, board messages, but she didn't open a single one. Zayden spoke without looking at her. "You didn't fire him because of me." She paused. "I fired him because of what he did." He nodded. Then, quieter. "I didn't want anyone ruined. I just wanted to be treated right." Maya reached over and squeezed his hand. "That's why you deserve justice. Not because you were loud, but because you were right." They didn't speak the rest of the ride. Back home in Chicago, Zayden returned to school the following Monday. He walked into class, took his usual seat in the front row, and pulled out his notebook like it was just another morning. The teacher paused at the sight of him. A few students exchanged awkward glances. Camilla's seat in the back corner was empty. No one asked why. During lunch, Zayden sat alone under the oak tree again. But this time, it wasn't because he had no place to go. It was because he chose peace. Later that week, a younger student walked over. "Hey, do you really own that hotel?" Zayden didn't laugh. He just smiled slightly. "No," he said. "My mom does." The boy grinned, then ran off to tell someone. Zayden went back to his book. He didn't need the attention. He didn't need the whispers. Because he knew something most kids his age hadn't learned yet. Real power doesn't shout. It stands still and lets the world adjust. Weeks passed. The hotel moved on. But something stayed behind. A shift in how people looked at things. At names. At skin. At silence. The training program Maya introduced was rolled out across all Carter Legacy properties. Quietly. Efficiently. No press releases. No PR stunts. Just action. At the end of the quarter, guest feedback scores showed something new. A spike in words like welcomed, seen, and respected. Maya read the reports alone in her office. She didn't smile, but she allowed herself one long breath. Because she knew that wasn't a number. That was her son's legacy.